How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Stephen Talks, and today Stephen is going to talk about Stephen King, one of the most prolific American novelists of all time. This guy's written hundreds of books at this point, right? I mean, if he hasn't, it seems like 100 books, possibly more. Anyway, it's a lot. And he was an integral part of my youth as far as the books that I was reading. As I've said in previous videos, I did not like watching scary movies at all. They scared me. I didn't like the unpredictability of that. But as far as reading something scary, that was another story. And that started with Stephen King. And really how all of that started was I had a thing for movie novelizations when I was a kid. Like, for some reason, if I saw a trailer for a movie that looked really good, I would seek out the novelization and then kind of do it backwards. I would read the book first, then go see the movie. So, yeah, I had all kinds of novelizations. Things like Gremlins 2 and License to Drive. That's right. Because why not? And one day I go into the local bookstore that was in my mall in my hometown, and I see this book that is, sitting on the new release table, and it has a little thing on it like now a major motion picture release or whatever. Now a major motion picture from Paramount, actually, is what it says. And so I'm like, okay, I've seen the commercial on TV for this movie, and it looks really creepy. And so I kind of want to read that. But my mother was like, I don't think you're old enough to read that just yet. And somehow I talked her into it because I'm like, what? Like, I've read scary stuff. Like, I watch zero horror movies. The scariest thing I've read so far is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. So I am more than equipped to jump into this writer's work. And so I got the book, and it was Pet Sematary. This was my first Stephen King novel. And this was it. This was my copy. As you can tell, read so many times. Yeah, I wasn't prepared for this, like, by any means. This book did two things for me. One, it totally opened up a whole new world for me as far as books that were geared for older audiences. I guess probably a lot of things that happen in the adult world. And the second thing it did was it scared the absolute poop out of me. Yeah, man. I read the end of this book one day when I was home from school. I don't know if it was like teacher work day or if I was homesick, but both of my parents were at work. I'm home by myself, and I decided that that's the perfect time to read the finale of Pet Sematary, where little Gage has come back from the dead. He is now running around Judd's house, stalking him. He later stalks both of his parents. And yeah, I'm all alone in my house where every single bump and creak is just making me like. And so when I read that final page and I read that final line of darling, like, I closed the book, set it down on the couch beside me, and I made a solemn vow that I was not going to move from that spot until my parents got home. And I didn't. I sat in that spot. Like, the second they walked in the door, man, I had to pee so bad. But I was scared to death. But once my parents got home and I felt safe again, I realized that, man, that feeling is exciting. There's something about that feeling, and I kind of want to find that feeling again. So I started a Stephen King binge. Any of his books that I could find, I got and I read. All of his classic run. So not long after Pet Sematary, that meant that I found myself in the world of The Shining. The Shining, I will go on record as saying, I think this is one of the scariest novels ever written. Which is why I had such a weird relationship with Stanley Kubrick's movie of The Shining for many years. Because I read this first. I read the novel first. Then I kept hearing that, man, you got to see The Shining. That's one of the scariest movies ever made. And so finally I sat down and watched it. And I hated it. Just to be honest with you, I was like, what? Where is all the good moments? There are so many moments that are just peppered throughout this book that Kubrick just completely left out. I was sitting there well, where are the hedge animals? In the book, the Overlook has a playground right outside of it, and Danny continuously goes out to this playground to play by himself. And there are these hedge animals, these hedges that have been clipped into the shapes of various animals, like Edward Scissorhands style. And they start to stalk Danny, but they only move when his back is turned to them. So he'll hear a sound and he'll turn around, and the hedge animals are all in different positions, but they're frozen, and they're also a little bit closer to him. Terrifying stuff. There's another part in the playground where Danny's in this little long tunnel thing that the snow is kind of buried both ends of it, and he kind of digs his way into one end, and he's just sitting in this concrete little tunnel, and suddenly he can hear something crawling towards him from the other end of the tunnel. And so he freaks out, and he's trying to crawl out, the snow's caving in on him. He finally gets his way out, and he starts running, and he stops. And he's like, hold on, this is crazy. This is all my imagination. And so he turns around and looks at the opening of this little tunnel, and there's a little hand sticking up. Scary as hell, man. There's another moment where Jack and Wendy and Danny are woken up in the middle of the night because the elevator is running by itself. And they go into the lobby and they're watching this elevator as it's going up to floor, down to this floor, down to this floor, and they can hear the sounds of a huge party happening in the floors above them. And Wendy's freaking out. She's like, there's people here. And Jack's like, there's no one here. It's literally just us. And then the elevator finally stops where they're at, and it opens up, and the elevator is full of balloons and confetti and party favors. None of these moments made it into Kubrick's film. And so I'm watching it just I don't get it, man. Why would you leave all of these great moments out? And I know that it's sacrilegious to say this, but I also had a huge problem with Jack Nicholson's performance. Because, in the book, Jack Torrance, he was an alcoholic. He had done some very violent things. And when the book starts, he is now trying to do better. He's doing his best. And it's not until he gets to the Overlook that the hotel starts to really work on his brain. And by the end of the novel, he has literally transformed into a monster of a man. So, he's a regular guy. He's just an ordinary guy. And so there's a journey that character goes on. There's an evolution to that character. In the movie, the second you meet Jack Torrance, he looks like he's batshit crazy. It's Jack Nicholson. He's got the eyebrows, and hi, I'm gonna be the caretaker here. And this guy looks like he's about to chase his family around with an axe. So later on in the movie, when he starts chasing his family around with an axe, you're like, well, duh. So, like, I didn't like it for a long time. It wasn't until college when I took a film appreciation class and had like a spiritual awakening when I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey for the first time. That was when I got interested in Kubrick as a filmmaker. Then I started watching his movies, and so when I watched The Shining again, instead of looking at it as a movie version of a Stephen King novel, I just looked at it as a Stanley Kubrick film. And then I was able to appreciate it for what it is. But if you are a fan of the movie, if you've seen it a million times and you love it, but you have never read The Shining, man, please go back and read this book. It is full of so much great material that never made it into that movie. I can't recommend it enough. All right. Two of my favorite of King's works is actually two collections of his short stories. Now, if anyone can write a banger of a short story, it is Stephen King. And if you have never read a single novel of Stephen King and you're curious, but you're like, I don't really want to sit down with a whole book, start out with his short stories. And the best way to do that is pick up a copy of Night Shift and pick up a copy of Skeleton Crew. These two books, every story in these two collections are just gold. And you would recognize over half of them because from Night Shift alone, the amount of movies that have been made from these stories, like what do we have here? We've got Graveyard Shift, the one about the huge rats. We've got The Mangler, the evil laundry folding machine. We've got The Boogeyman, which I haven't seen that movie yet, but they recently made a movie of that. Trucks, which Trucks was famously turned into King's sole directing project, which was Maximum Overdrive, a movie that was filmed here in my home state of North Carolina. A lot of people think that it is a huge piece of crap. I love it. I think it's fun as hell. A comet passes around the earth and for some reason causes all the machines in the world to rebel against humans. The short story, though, is Trucks. It's made trucks run on their own, and they're running around, running people over and stuff like that. But Maximum Overdrive, the movie, you've got killer soda machines, you've got killer carving knives, of course you've got trucks. You got it. The main truck has a huge face of the Green Goblin on the grill. And you got Emilio Estevez and AC/DC on the soundtrack. It's a perfect time. But also, sometimes they come back. Children of the Corn, man. Quitters Incorporated and The Ledge were both segments in the movie Cat's Eye. There's The Lawnmower Man, which as a short story is one of the most disturbing things you will ever read. As a movie, it has nothing at all to do with the story that it's based on. It literally just has the name. That is it. But I love Night Shift. It's one of my favorite of King's. It's so good. The other one, Skeleton Crew, again, movie-wise, you may recognize this guy because just recently Osgood Perkins, who made Longlegs, made a movie version of The Monkey, which that movie is amazingly entertaining, and I loved it. But this book also starts out with The Mist, which got a brilliant movie version of it done by Frank Darabont, who also did adaptions of The Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption, which honestly, those are probably some of the best film adaptions of Stephen King's work. Darabont knows King, and he knows him well. But, I mean, yeah, there's bound to be others in here. Oh, The Raft. The Raft was a segment in Creepshow too. But yeah, like these, again, if you don't want to sit and read a whole novel, get these books. All the short stories are fantastic in them. Okay, while we're at this spot, in getting ready to do this video, I couldn't find my copy of Cujo. It's around here somewhere, but I can't do this video without mentioning Cujo because this is a story that a lot of people who are not very big fans of King will cite this as one of like his examples of lazy writing. Like, oh, a dog gets rabies and it kills people. Like, what? Yeah, I mean, if you literally have to make a one sentence synopsis of this book, then okay, fine. But it is so much more than that. It is the only book of his that starts out with once upon a time. And it tells you from the get-go that this is a modern Grimm's fairy tale. And the little boy, Tad, every night is terrified that there is a monster in his closet. And he makes a big deal of it. Like, I don't want to go to bed. There's this monster in my closet. I'm scared to death of it. And so his mother and his father tell him repeatedly, listen, there's nothing to be scared of because there's no such thing as monsters. And then fast forward to him and his mother being held captive in their broken down car by a gigantic rabid Saint Bernard. The kind of the lesson of the Grimm's fairy tale is that actually, little boy, there are such things as monsters. And you need to prepare yourself for that. And that, to me, that's not the work of a hack writer. That's not a lazy writing job. That's a brilliant take on it. And I've always loved Cujo. So yes, I will find my book of it somewhere. I had that original red paperback with just like the paw print on it. I hope it's around somewhere. But anyway, moving on to, I love this one too. This one was a formidable one growing up as well. And that is Cycle of the Werewolf. This one looks interesting because look, it's very thin. But this one has the distinction of being a short kind of, I don't even know what you would call this. All in all, maybe a short story. But it has illustrations from Bernie Wrightson. And these illustrations are just like, they were nightmare fuel for me growing up. Like, look at these. Look at that. That's amazing stuff. I would read this book and I would see these illustrations and it would keep me up at night. Like, they are done so well. It's just a great werewolf story, you know? We don't really get a lot of good werewolf novels, and this is one of them. Famously, this was turned into a movie as well, a movie called Silver Bullet, which is notable because you have a very young Corey Haim who is in a motorized wheelchair fashioned to look like a motorcycle. You have also starring a huge mound of cocaine fashioned to look like Gary Busey. And you have Big Ed from Twin Peaks, who plays the local pastor who may have a dark secret. I'm not the biggest fan of Silver Bullet as a movie. It's not the worst werewolf movie I've ever seen, but I wouldn't rank it up there as my favorites. That's just my opinion. But Cycle of the Werewolf is always a fun read if you just want to pick it up and give it a shot. So I'm going to end this with my favorite thing that King has ever written. Now, when King was really starting out, he was pumping out novel after novel. His publishers and his managers were like, we're afraid that your name is going to kind of saturate the market a bit. People are going to get tired of hearing, oh, well, Stephen King's got a new book out. So they're like, you need to create a pseudonym to release more stuff under. So he created the pseudonym of Richard Bachman, and he would release 4 books under that name, and then they would collect them in a collection called the Bachman Books. And one of those Bachman books that has haunted me ever since I read it when I was young was The Long Walk. The Long Walk still to this day floors me. It's the story of kind of like an alternate world, alternate society, maybe futuristic, maybe dystopian, that is very much a mirror image of our world. But in this world, every year there's this event that takes place, and it's called the Long Walk. And that means that a group of young boys go on this walk. They literally start at a starting line and they start walking. And they walk miles and miles. And the whole time that they're walking, they have these soldiers that are walking along with them and riding alongside them in trucks and these little small tanks. The event is huge. It's televised. Everyone stops what they're doing to watch it. It's the biggest ratings maker every year that it comes on. But there are rules to the Long Walk. And the rules are, if you fall below the pace that is set, if you stop walking, if you try to run away, do any of these things, you get these warnings. And after 3 warnings, you get your ticket. And by getting your ticket, that means they shoot you in the head. And so the winner of the Long Walk is the last surviving boy who is still walking. And I was the same age as these boys when I read this book. So it was easy as hell for me to imagine myself in this situation. And the way that King really deals with what happens to you, not only physically if you're walking that far, you know, the leg cramps that can happen, diarrhea, like what happens when that hits you and you can't stop walking. Not only that, but the psychological damage when you start getting so exhausted that you start hallucinating, you really start cracking under all this pressure. It's a harrowing novel, and I love it. I think it is genius. It has always been my favorite thing that King has ever written. And it just recently got a movie adaptation after many, many years of stops and starts. I love it. I was so happy and relieved to see what they did with that movie. If you haven't seen it yet, I believe it is on HBO Max right now, if you have that streaming service. I can't recommend it enough. I think they did a fantastic job. It's a wonderful movie. If you love the movie, go back and read the book. I mean, really, if you've seen the movie, man, you may not have to. They did do some changes, especially to the end, but I was shocked at how much original dialogue was in the movie that is just straight from the book. That made me feel so happy. You know, you could tell that the filmmakers really respected the source material. So, as far as reading all of Stephen King's books, hell no, I haven't done that. I will be honest with you, I really have not read a large amount of his newest stuff. I think I got to maybe about the early 2000s and then kind of fell off of reading his stuff. But as far as his classic runs from the 70s, 80s, 90s into the early 2000s, all of it. I love all of those books. I think they're fantastic. Who knows, man? Maybe I'll go pick up, one of his newer ones and check it out and revisit this beautiful man. So thank you for watching this video. If you have a favorite Stephen King book, put it in the comments, man. I'd love to hear it. So thank you for listening to me talk. I'll talk to you again later. Oh, bye-bye.